Welcome to ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or as we've been calling it, Attention Deficit Hyperactive Impulsive Disorder, if you've been to the previous 3 modules. What we're doing is we're understanding ADHD, the 3 areas of diversity and their effect on learning and behaviour. And this is module 4, where we're looking at impulsive behaviours. Just to introduce myself, for those who haven't been to any of the other workshops, my name's Andrew Whitehouse. I'm a TEDx speaker. I delivered a TEDx called From Disability to Superpowers, and it's worth checking out if you've got access to YouTube at any time to have a look. It's a talk basically about things that people with neurological diversities can do that people without those neurological diversities can't do. So it's a very positive talk, it's worth looking at. I'm also a Bamford lecturer. I delivered a Bamford lecture called Creating Autism Friendly Audiology Clinics. Well worth a view. It's on YouTube, it's on my website. And I deliver short courses to a range of organisations, including Bishop Grosseteste University, University of Lincoln, Cognos, Harlow Education Consortium, and many, many others. I'm also a forensic special educational needs and disability consultant. That means I work in the courts and as an expert witness in court cases related to special educational needs and disability. I do training, I do observations, and I'm also a multiple keynote speaker in conferences. And I would say that the work that I deliver on my workshops, the things that I talk about on my workshops, are very much based on my observational work and my work in the classrooms and other environments where I'm in observing young people. So most of the work that you're getting from me today will be based on my own personal professional experiences. If you want to connect with me online, I'm at Facebook, Andrew Whitehouse at People First Education. I'm very active on Twitter. Twitter's probably my favourite platform, at Andrew WSEN. I'm also very active on Instagram at Andrew WSEN. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Andrew Whitehouse with a load of letters after his name. And if you want to go old school, you can email me. It's Andrew at peoplefirsteducation.com. And of course, my website is peoplefirsteducation.com. So now we'd like to talk to you about attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or as I like to call it, hyperactive impulsive disorder, attention deficit hyperactive impulsive disorder. If I'm going to show you something that's very interesting about ADHD, there are 3 kinds of ADHD. There is the combined type, which is inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. We've got ADD, that's what we used to call in the UK attention deficit hyperactive disorder without hyperactivity. ADD is a lot simpler. ADD is inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactive impulsivity. Now, what you'll notice from looking at that slide is that the impulsivity is the only thing that is in all 3 of those presentations of ADHD. And yet it's not in the acronym. It's not in ADHD. So as I've said before, I like to include impulsivity in it. I like to call it ADHD almost. I won't be calling that in the course, but you know, that's a good way of remembering it. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive impulsive disorder, because it is the one thing that every type of ADHD has got. So what's worth looking at here is that if you look at this circle with the 3 areas of diversity in ADHD, we've got inattention, impulsivity, hyperactivity. You can have any 2 of those as long as they include impulsivity, or you can have all 3 of them, which will obviously include impulsivity. So this is really important things to bear in mind, that ADHD must have the impulsivity, even though impulsivity is not in the acronym. And I think most people would agree with me when I say, I think the difficulty most teachers, parents, professionals have with ADHD is related to the impulsivity. And so, you know, it's an important one to remember. Why it's not in there, who knows? Impulsivity. So I want to talk to you about it. I really want to promote positive expectations. ADHD is not a death sentence. People with ADHD achieve. People with ADHD achieve just as much as other people. In fact, we believe that only a third of people with ADHD present with challenging behaviour. And I'd be really interested to know what proportion of people without ADHD present with challenging behaviour. Maybe it's a third, who knows? But when we have our positive expectations and a child fails to fulfill these, it's okay. Don't make a big deal of it. Just deal with it there and then. Let's move on. Let's look for their particular skills. Certainly don't bring it up the following day. One of my least favourite things, is in one of my least favourite practices is when people say, "Oh, hope we don't have another day like yesterday," or "Hope you're in a better mood today." No, each day with a clean slate. Or as a lady in York once reminded me, a special needs coordinator in York once reminded me, let's start each lesson, each experience with a clean slate. Yeah, let's start afresh every time. This will help you to alleviate anxiety. This will take it away. When the young person starts to understand that you're starting everything with a clean slate, then they will feel more comfortable. They will know they're in a safe learning place, metaphorically, and they will be able to engage a lot easier. Allow a bit of time out. I'm very big on time out for people with ADHD, and hey, for people who don't have ADHD, allow a bit of time out. If they're not coping, the previous module was about attention deficit, and that attention deficit sometimes meant needing to walk about, needing to get fresh air, needing to do something different for a few minutes. This is a positive thing. Time out is not a negative. Time out is a positive, and that's something I really, really want to promote. And whilst they're on time out, breathing exercises, relaxation techniques to de-stress, all very, very positive things that I would really like to promote on this training workshop. Okay. I'm very big on self-management of behaviours with ADHD. What do I mean by self-management? I'll tell you now. Adopt, stop, think and do approaches. I believe that when you talk to a person with ADHD about their previous actions and things that they've done, particularly impulsive behaviours that we're talking about now, I believe you can train people with ADHD to learn how to manage these impulsive behaviours. And there's so many ways to do this. We're going to be looking at visual stories later in the training, but on a different workshop. But in this bit, what I would say is, as well as your visual stories, you can do things like when somebody's having what I call a fizzing moment, say, "What are you going to do now?" Now, they may well still go and do that negative, that challenging behaviour thing that was going to happen, but they will keep that thought in their head that somebody said to them, "What are you going to do now?" Or afterwards, in a non-condescending way, "How did that work out? Did that work out for you?" And that's another one that you could be doing just to get them, and it'll eventually sink in. Or we can do some workshopping. I'm going to do one little workshopping activity with you a bit later. We can do some workshopping on how to behave in certain circumstances. So other things about stopping is, if you are doing some whole class work and you've got questioning and you want kids putting their hands up and answering questions and talking to you, one of the things is to wait before you accept answers from the whole class. So everybody be quiet, please. Let's everybody be focusing on me. That's great. Let's be ready to learn. Here is my question. Just giving that little bit of time for that child to be able to gather themselves and take them out of their possible impulsive behaviours. Really good practice. Okay. Don't single that child out. Remind the whole class to put their hand up if they want to talk. Remind the whole class about the rules for interrupting. If someone persists, talk to them on their own, not in front of the class. Speak to them afterwards and say, just couldn't help noticing you were maybe a little bit excited and you were maybe interrupting a little bit. And I'm very pleased that you've got that excitement and that you want to enjoy the lessons. But just to remind you, that would you mind just putting your hand up and waiting your turn, or something like that, or jotting it down or something. Those are the sorts of things that we would expect. And and I would really strongly recommend using visual interventions to assist with time on tasks and organisation of learner time. I'm going to show you my timer again. These things, I do go on and on about these, but timers are really fantastic to help with organisation time. Hey, look, I'm using one right now, not just for children, right? So I want to look at ADHD and the effects on the learner. Here's a lovely little resource that you can do. You're welcome to change the format of this. This is just one possible format. So it's called a happy recipe. You call it what you want, journey to success, something, action planning. So on this one, what I've done is I've put my name, my address, my school, my teacher. There are obviously times when you don't want to be revealing your name, your address, your school, or your teacher. That's up to you. As my mother would say, use your nozzle and make it fit your needs. So name, address, school, teacher is on this one. Okay, so moving on to the next page. I live with these people. And so if it's a child and they're living in a home with maybe with mother, with stepdad, with two sisters and a stepbrother, we might list those names. It's really down to who's living in that house. Obviously, all families come in different shapes and sizes, so we would list that down. This is helpful for the child to engage and to to see that big picture actually written down on a piece of paper. But it's also helpful for the teacher or the member support staff that's working with that child to be able to get the big picture of that child's life and lifestyle. Okay. And then we want to start on a positive. This is good fun. I'm really good at. I usually use this workshop, this activity in when I'm running day courses, and I might have a room full of teachers and teaching assistants. And you know what they're really bad at is saying what they're good at. People are just really, I don't know whether they're shy or whether I don't know, but they just really don't like saying, I'm really good at. And so, so, sometimes they need a little bit of support with that. So if there's two members of staff that have come from the same school, you might have a situation whereby I would ask the person that came with them, what is Helen really good at? And they'll say, oh, she's a good listener, or she's a good friend, or she makes a nice cup of coffee, or whatever it is. Yeah. And so you might have to do a little bit of digging for that, because children are no different to adults really when it comes to this. Even now I'm struggling. What am I really good at? Who knows? Maybe I'll find out eventually. So I am really good at, that's you starting with your positive. And then these are the things people don't like me to do. Everybody jumps on that one straight away. Everybody knows what people don't like about them. But you could list this, things that I do that maybe bother other people. And so put that down in the list, get it all down on paper, and then we're getting a little bit deeper in. The people who don't like me doing these things are. So you might list your family, and you might say, in my case, I might say it's my children. And I've got 4 children, so we would list their names, and then that will be fine. And we've got that down, so we're really focusing in. My behaviours are having an adverse effect on these people. Now we're tunneling even further in. The person who gets the most upset is, and so who knows? I mean, It may be my oldest daughter is the person that gets most upset by that behaviour, or my youngest son, or what have you. It's important to put that down there. So you're now getting a really good feel about developing your thought processes about your behaviours, and what I think is done in a really positive way. So we're just digging in. It's very private, but we're digging into that. Excuse me. So now I would list 3 things that upset other people I would like to change. 1, 2, 3. Put those down on a piece of paper or on a board or something like that. I love using whiteboards, and in fact I'm just thinking now this would make a really great hour board. I need to get in touch with hour boards about this, but put that down, and then rewards. Now, not everybody agrees with me about this, but I think we all like something to work forward to. I think we all need to sort of have something that we think is going to benefit us. And, you know, rewards come in all shapes and sizes as well. And but the most important thing about rewards is having a reward that's meaningful to that person. I can remember going in a Poundland years ago, and it was when I was a teacher, absolutely tons of really great Harry Potter stuff, fantastic. And I used to do rewards every day. I used to do the raffle ticket rewards. You give a child a raffle ticket for every good behaviour. They used to line them up in front of them, and it was great fun. And I had all this Harry Potter stuff, yeah, because all kids love Harry Potter. Wrong. And I remember one particular boy used to say to me, "Can't you buy something else? I'm fed up with all this Harry Potter stuff." Yeah, so rewards need to be meaningful. And then you might even do a certificate or something like that, and with a new target on there. This is good stuff, you know. And again, you've got these slides. Do it your way. Do it your way. Make it fit your needs. This is just something I put together. And even now I'm looking at it, it's got flaws in it that I maybe wouldn't use now. But the general concept and the process is a good one, and I would strongly, strongly recommend it. Okay, so I'm going to be moving on just a little bit more, and I'm going to have a little slurp of my coffee. I thought it'd be a nice idea that you may be sitting down with your coffee, watching my videos, so I thought I'd have a coffee with you. So let's be a little bit social. So, social skills and social rules. Some of the things you need to think about. It may not be obvious. So I'm going to go around this slide sort of clockwork. So it's not in particular any order. Who to trust. Social rules. Who to trust. You know, who you might be in a position where family is at the top of the pile and you can trust your family more than you can trust other people. Maybe you can't. Friends, teachers, maybe you can trust your teachers less than your friends, or your friends less than your teachers. Who knows? There's some, you know, quite toxic relationships out there. And I do meet people with their circle of friends. Their circle of friends is not that good for them. It's a negative experience. I do also meet education professionals that maybe there isn't a good relationship with the child, and maybe it's not so trustworthy. I think we generally put strangers at the bottom of the pile. You need to get to know people, but we need to make this very clear to people. Who is your trusting triangle? Oh, I like that, trusting triangle. I'm keeping that. Social currency. This is a very interesting one. Social currency is basically, I got this idea from the idea of teaching children how to budget their money. And I've done this with my own children, and you know, they learn really quickly. If they spend their money quickly, they've got no money. You know, that's basic economics, isn't it? And so if they pace their money, or they put their money in the bank, or they get me to look after it, they've got a little bit more. They can come back and say, how much have I got left, and what have you. So I once had some tokens made, and I would give these tokens to the children that I was working with. This was in a post-16 setting in special education, and these tokens, what I would give them the tokens, and these tokens would buy certain privileges throughout the week. They might buy you time on a computer when that was kind of popular, or what have you. And it was a really great way to teach these young people to budget without using real money. It was a good one. Social networking. Social networking. I've had my experiences on social networking, and sometimes they can be negative, and not too often, I'm pleased to say. But there's lots of things around social networking that people, all children, need to learn, particularly children with ADHD. You know, click on this, click on that. Somebody said something rude to you. No, I'm of the opinion if someone's rude to me on the internet, then I've got two choices. I can respond to that, or I can just get rid of them, and I just block them. But you know, it's very easy to get drawn into a contest with people. And so teaching young people how to do that, how to block people that are maybe a little bit negative in their lives. And then finally, in the bottom left-hand corner, we've got a picture of a person on a bus. And you can see it's quite an empty bus. There's two people on the bus, you know, learning to maybe, if it's a quiet bus, to sit away, you know, sit away from people. If you don't, you know, if you don't want to disturb them, you don't want to worry them, you don't want to intimidate people. You know, these are the sorts of things that we need to bear in mind. So lots and lots of things, lots of social skills need teaching. Okay, right. Behavioural intervention for ADHD. Okay. Just share with you that that's a fine cup of coffee. The behaviour of an ADHD learner is one that requires considerable energy and involvement. Yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work managing ADHD. It really, really is. And I suppose lesson number one has got to be look after yourself. Look after yourself. Make sure you get an early night, you eat well, you know, not too many drinks of wine in the week maybe, you know, and that you've not spent your whole night planning and making resources. I think most head teachers would agree they want their teaching staff well and healthy first, because that's when you're at your best. And as I've said in previous occasions on these workshops, you can't feed from an empty cup. So this is what I would say. Make sure you've got plenty of energy. Remember that people with ADHD respond to the world differently. They're able to see through the situation and manipulate the outcome because they're clever, creative, and quick to perceive weakness. Yeah. This always reminds me of a school that I was in the south of England, where it was quite a challenging class, and there were a few young people with ADHD and various other related conditions. And the teacher came in and said, "I'm not feeling very well today. Please be gentle with me." Do I need to tell you the rest of that story? You know, in fact, I've got our producer there, the other side of the camera, nodding his head, going, "Yeah," because that's really, you know, it's not helpful, because you're showing weakness. I was watching something about the circus, and there was the lion tamer, and the lion tamer in the circus, he had what was it? A disintegrated hip or something. Sounded terrible. He could hardly walk, but he had to hide his limp when he was with the lions, because if the lions found out he was weak, they'd take him down. So you're encouraged to learn a lot about ADHD. This can be a good first step so that you can monitor behaviour and intervene when there are differences in behaviour. You need to know what's going on, and you need to learn about that child you're working with. ADHD, you need to involve the child in the process of behaviour management. I've said this before, nobody likes being in trouble. No pupil, no school child wants to be told off. No pupil, no school child likes to be the one that's always sitting on that little chair outside the head's office. And so if you offer them the opportunity to be part of the problem-solving process, you will get success from that. And you'll probably get better success and more creative success than you would under normal circumstances. So get them involved, you know, and say, what do you think we should do? Now, I'm going to go through a little process with you, and it's quite an exciting one, and I think you'll quite enjoy this process. So one of the things is you help the learner to monitor their own behaviour to prevent a problem before it occurs. So parents, how about this one, or anyone who's ever known a child? So I'm camping with my children, and one of my children, my youngest child, I said to her, this is a barbecue, it's a thing for heating food, and you don't touch it because it'll burn you. So she's, yes, Daddy, okay, Daddy. A few minutes later, you know what happens. She's in, she's crying, she's hurt her hand, and I'm saying to her, did you touch the barbecue? No, Daddy, I didn't touch the barbecue. Okay, so you look at her hand and you're running it under the water, and it's got all these griddle wheel marks in the hand. She clearly has. And, and you say to that person, look, you did touch the barbecue, but you won't be touching that again. No, Daddy, won't be touching the barbecue again. So, that's when it fails. That's when we start looking at solving problems. And I think many of our problem solving activities come out of failures. I think we get failures first to enable successes. So when we've got a child, that something's happened, number one, we remain calm. We remain calm. Somebody's got to be calm. We must remember that learner may not see their behaviour as a problem. We meet people like that all the time, don't we? And they just, and you sort of trying to talk to them, and can you not see that this is not the right thing to do? And quite often they don't. And so you might have to work with that person to sort of see where the issues is. And that, again, when we look at visual stories, is a really, really, really good one. So when we're looking at theory of mind and how the other person thinks. So you might have to work with that. So point one, you need to identify the problem with their behaviour. Let that person tell you what happened. So, and don't show opinion. So I'm going to tell you a lovely little story about one of my children who was in a playground at school when they were about 8 years old. And what had happened was there was an incident. I get the phone call from the head teacher, and what happens was that my child had bitten another child, and it had caused quite a severe amount of damage to that person. Now, I get the phone call from the head teacher, and I say, well, I don't understand it, because the child that he bit is significantly bigger than him, and actually is, I don't know why he would do that. That would be quite a big mistake to make. And the head teacher was in agreement with me, but my son would not explain what happened. So first job you got to do is let them retell the event in your own words. So that evening I sat with my child and I said, what happened? Now here's an interesting thing about that. I'm going to flick us forward. The interesting thing about that was, you've got to create an area of trust. So you listen, you don't interrupt, and you explain to them, and you explain the truth. You don't make promises you can't keep. So the promise I could keep was, if you tell me what's happened, I might be able to help you with this and sort this situation out. If you don't tell me, I can't do anything. The wrong thing to say would be, I can help, because you don't know if you can. So you listen and you don't interrupt. So what had happened was that in amongst that, what had been going on is my child had been attacked by that other child who put their arm around his neck. They were squeezing tight. My child became frightened, didn't know what to do, and had bitten them to get them to let go, but bitten them a little bit too hard. So you encourage them to find a way to communicate that clearly, and any of the sort of misconceptions that child may have, you're going to encourage them in their understanding of that. So, for example, one of the questions I asked was, did you not feel that it was appropriate to call a lunchtime supervisor or someone like that? To which he replied, we're not allowed to shout out on the playground. Well, yeah, you are when you're in danger. So that was worth putting that one in there. We've clarified a misperception. You can shout when you're in danger. So the next step is you write down solutions. You write down as many solutions as you possibly can. And you might write down sensible ones, you might write down silly ones. It really doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is to get a feeling of, what should I do? If we're back to that stop and think time of earlier, what should I do next time something like that happens? So the reason you put down the silly ones is, from the silly ones you might get some good ideas. So for example, if you're short of money, what should I do? I should rob a bank. You write it down. But the thing is, you're not going to rob a bank, but then you investigate that and you say, but I could go and ask for a short-term loan from the bank. Yeah. As an adult, I might say I could get a paper round. Well, I can't get a paper round. I'm too old. I'd never manage it on the bicycle with that big heavy bag. But I may be able to get a few extra hours at work or something like that. So you write these things down and they do lead into better ideas. The other thing is, when I do this particular thing, I do look at this same scenario on the day courses. I get people to come up with them and I give out prizes for the most violent response that they could have done in this situation. And people are very, very sick individuals. They do come up with some quite nasty things and I do give them a prize. And then I ask, what was the child in trouble for? And they say, biting. And I say, no, he wasn't in trouble for biting. He was in trouble for hurting. And if he'd done some of those awful things that you've just described to me, he'd be in trouble for that as well, because it's hurting. But if he doesn't understand, if you don't, as the adults, understand that that hurting is what they're in trouble for, how do you expect the 8-year-old to understand? Some really good social stuff comes out of this sort of workshopping. It's really, really a good one to do. At the end, we've got it all written down. We don't discourage any. We do our best. Positive facial expressions, body language, do all that stuff. And then we move on to evaluating those solutions with that young person. And assist, in seeing the whole picture. So if you stood on his foot and damaged his foot, you'd be in as much trouble, and all these different things. And actually, that's how you find, by a process of elimination, that's how you find the solution to that problem and how you're going to behave next time. So it's pretty simple stuff. And that once the learner has agreed to this, and they probably will, because they're accountable and they're interested, they've bought into the solution. Once they've done that, that's when you can start getting the really, really positive results. Okay, and they will buy in. And the other thing is, once you've shown yourself to be trustworthy the first time around, they will know that they can come to you and do something similar with you in the future. Worth remembering as well, even if the idea that they come up with isn't the same as yours, think about it. Is it sensible? Will it work? Has it the potential to work? If it's got the potential to work, then I would say give it a go. Give it some, certainly consider it, but I would say give it a go. Once you've come to the agreement, write it down, and then you've got your positive. Praise that young person for coming up with a solution and committing to that solution. I think you'll get success. I've found it very successful. It's what I call one of my go-to strategies, and I've found it really helpful. Okay. Right. Okay. So the use of positive reinforcement with learners with ADHD can be the most effective part of our program. Learners with ADHD receive so much negative feedback that positive feedback is always needed. The more, the better. If you were to flick back to module 1 of this ADHD workshop, then you would find that self-esteem and then leading to oppositional defiant behaviours and challenging behaviours are a huge part of ADHD. And actually, You know, it's not always necessary to be so negative with people with ADHD. It's about finding their differences, finding their positives, and finding the ways that they work best. And one of the things I say is, you know, you need loads and loads and loads of positive feedback. I've written there, the more the better. But here's the phrase that I like. If you don't go to bed tired of giving your learner positive statements, you haven't given them enough. Your face needs to hurt from smiling. It's more likely you're tired from criticising and redirecting, and positive reinforcement and an affirmative language should be an essential part of every system for an ADHD learner. Say something positive, say something kind, be aware of their special skills and their positive attributes, and really work on those, because actually that's the stuff that they'll probably pursue later in life, those things that they're really good at. Be perfect. There you go. And I just thought, for a bit of fun, I would Google perfect teacher, and there she is. Who knew, eh? But anyway, be perfect. Okay. Just so as you know, that was the comedy slide previously. Most important rule is involve the child. Yeah, we said this. Get them involved in their own behaviour management, get them involved in their own problem solving, get them involved with their forward planning. Talk about what you want to see, not what you don't want to see. So what I want to see is I would like to see you do this, and this. I don't want to be hearing people saying, don't do this, don't do that. Don't kick Michael. Don't do, you know, we want to be talking about what they should be doing, not what they shouldn't be doing. Be positive. So, who's got time for a joke? Here we go. You're a dirtbag. Geez, Chief, you need to be more positive. Okay. I'm positive you're a dirtbag. That's my only joke for the day. Use a positive tone of voice when you identify behaviours you'd like to see. Okay. This is good. Don't address more than 3 behaviours at a time. This is something I want to talk about. What I want to talk about there is, let's have a metaphor. I deliver dyslexia training, and if you come on a dyslexia day course, you might go away with 100 strategies for someone with dyslexia, 100 things that they can try. What do you think's going to happen if you give a young child, 100 new strategies? You come in, you've been on the course on the Tuesday, come to school on a Wednesday, and you say, come on then, Sally, here we go. Here's 100 things you can try. That child's going to have some kind of breakdown, meltdown. You know, it's just, you know, better to pick 2 or 3 things. And on those courses, I do say, right, end of the day, 3 things you're going to try. And I do it with these, you know, directed task. What are you going to, 3 things you're going to try and change in your practice. So we do that, and that's got a more manageable thing. So maybe they go back to little Sally and they say to Sally, okay, we're going to work on getting your P's the right way round. We're going to work on finding a colour that's good for an overlay for you. And we're going to work on some alternative to phonics with you. And that's the 3 things you might do. Well, when you've got a child that you might describe as behavioural difficulties, how effective do you think it is to go in and say, right, we're going to change this person. We're going to change this person from this person with all these behavioural problems to a person with, no behaviour problems. You're going to fail. You're going to fail. You can't change an entire person. So what I'm saying to you is pick 2 or 3 low-level behaviours that you can address with that young person, and set those targets and just basically go with those. Have a reward system in place, and you know, give yourself that opportunity to achieve, celebrate, and move forward. I'm going to be coming back to that when we look at the PDA workshop, pathological demand avoidance. So, but that's one worth looking at. No more than 3 behaviours at a time. Okay, when we're looking at rewards, you know, you want to be meeting the needs of the person. This reward needs to motivate. This reward needs to motivate. No point giving that boy Harry Potter memorabilia he doesn't want. That's the end of it, isn't it? I was never very good at accepting house points at school. I couldn't see the point of them. I really just couldn't. I just didn't see what it was. So the reward has to motivate. Get to know that person. Get to know that child. What is it they like to spend money on? You know, who do they hang out with? And then, you know, work out, are you going to give it as some kind of tally, they're working up towards something, or is it a child that might need instant rewards? Who knows? You need to find that out. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. And I mentioned earlier raffle tickets. That's one of my favourites, but it doesn't work for everybody. But giving out raffle tickets with a choice of rewards on a daily basis, honestly, you should have your wages paid into Poundland. But this is the sort of thing that really works. And I didn't know with the raffle tickets as a teacher. When I was a young teacher, I used to give these kids raffle tickets. I then found out with my own children that they had a teacher that was giving out raffle tickets, and they saw the raffle tickets as a reward, not just the reward of winning, but actually having those tickets. They used to come home and stick them on the fridge. So, you know, it's good strategy. Right, okay. If you are working with someone, if you are here today working with somebody, watching this workshop, I want you to, in a moment, we're going to pause, or going to get you to pause, and I want you to work out some possible rewards. Okay, some things that maybe work for you, or some ideas that have pinged into your head during this workshop. That's what I'd like you to do. Okay, and then I'll go through some of the ones that I've got. If you want to message me some of the ones that you've got, I'm always looking for new information. So if we can now pause, enjoy your cup of coffee, and enjoy a conversation. Welcome back. Okay, so what sort of things have you come up with? I've got in my list, this seems to be the most popular one, a positive comment, kind words. We've talked about this before, you know, that people with ADHD are often, they've had so much negative feedback in the past that they could do with some really kind words. Kind words, recognizing the positives. Stickers, merits, points, fantastic. I do love a good sticker. And I also, forgive me for mentioning my kids again, but one of my children used to bring his stickers back and used to give them to me and stick them on my laptop. You know, his way of showing me the, you know, how proud he was of his sticker. But I wouldn't want to embarrass our producer at the moment. So he's a lot older now. Certificates. Do you know, people love certificates. They go on a training course, they absolutely love a certificate. For me, certificates, I get certificates through the post for all sorts of things, particularly being a business owner. And they just go in a drawer. They mean nothing to me, but people do like certificates. I was recently asked to bring my qualifications into a university just as part of the process of putting on these courses. And I couldn't find my certificates, really. I had to buy them all new. But for some people, they mean everything. Additional responsibilities. Some people love a job, especially younger children. Getting outside. It's ADHD. Think about it. Getting outside is the plan. Getting outside, some outdoor learning, fantastic. Choosing time. What would you like to do next? ICT. When we first started using ICT and computers in schools, and the kids would do anything to get on a computer, they're still the same. I thought it would fizzle out. You know, they've all got their iPad, they've all got their tablet, they've all got their mobile phone, and yet they will do anything to get on one in school. They really, really enjoy it. Getting hold of their parents in the positive. That's an interesting one, because what you often find is you phone home, you say to the parents, "Oh, hi, is that Ahmed's mother? Yeah. Hi." And the first thing they say, "What's he done? What's he done?" You know, you say, no, I'm phoning you up to say he's done a good thing. This is a great one. And I do love getting those letters from school to say your child's done this and your child's done that, or that phone call. Absolutely fantastic. Options of interest, let them indulge themselves into their special interests. Again, something they can have some learning experience or based around things that interest them. Why don't you work on your car project for a little while? Just a few more. Freedom of movement. Would you like to sit with somebody different? Would you like to go and go and have a wander about? Do you want to sit outside? Whatever it is, be able to do that. Choosing your work, your task. Believe me, this one actually works. Okay, you've been really good, really helpful. You've done X, Y, Z for me, and I'm really pleased, and you've done this and you've achieved that. Would you like to do your geography or your history next? Everyone's a winner. Field trips, that's a long-term earning towards. I've done this in the past where you can earn a field trip. This is not to get confused with taking away entitlement. This is extra additional stuff. Lunch with the staff, head teachers' tea parties can be really good. Head teachers' tea parties, tea and cake and things like that. Reduced homework. Let's face it, if they've produced loads in the lesson, proportionately more, then they should see the benefits of this. And then you might pick them up the odd thing or so and legitimately give them something towards their learning. I've put the word gift there. I'm not suggesting that you shower your children with gifts, but if you have a child that has maybe done a great piece of work on dinosaurs, you might, reward them with a toy dinosaur of minimal value, but of maximum importance to that person. Okay. Now we're going to talk about some sanctions. In my professional opinion and in my practice, I know that sanctions are generally less effective than rewards. I do find, though, I see more sanctions than I do rewards on my travels. I'm trying to rectify that one classroom at a time. But in a moment, I'm going to pause. I'm going to get you to discuss with people next to you about sanctions. If you're on your own, write your own list of sanctions, and we will compare notes once you've done that. So if we can pause now. Okay, welcome back. So some sanctions that I got. Displeasure shown, the foundation stage face, or the other foundation stage face. Displeasure shown. Yeah, to let them know. Docking points. Should we take points away from a child that we've given them to? General consensus on that one is a no, although I have seen the odd occasion where maybe something has to be taken away, but I would say in general, probably not. Free time restricted. Free time restricted is an interesting one. If you keep a child with ADHD in at playtime, I've said this before, who's going to suffer? I think you're going to suffer more than the child. Time out. Time out should be really an optional positive thing. And again, I do struggle with that one. Informing parents, there are issues around that as well. You don't want to inform a parent of a challenging behaviour if you think it's a parent that's going to maybe, be a little bit overzealous in their sanctions at home. And but then again, you don't want to keep information from parents, so it's really important to share that. Detentions, a little bit like keeping people in. And privileges, taking away privileges. Well, a privilege is that if you've got some privileged situation you're in, like looking after the hamster or something like that, then maybe that's something we could take away on a temporary basis. What I do want to make very, very clear is we are all working under the guidelines of the Equality Act and the Special Educational Needs and Disability Code of Practice. You cannot sanction a child for something that they are not in control of. You cannot sanction a child if they are for something that is a presentation of their ADHD. And as far as the SEND Code of Practice goes, you don't even need a diagnosis. The reasonable adjustments have to be made for the child who looks as though they may have ADHD in this case. So do be cautious not to sanction a child for things out of their control. We need to think about responses to situations. We need to remember that that our actions can escalate. So, you know, if we're seen to be picking on one particular child, that the learners in the classroom might do the same thing to curry favour with the teacher. We need to know that our colleagues must be consistent. Consistency is key in all management of behaviour and all management of special educational needs and disability. And we are in a very powerful position there. And we need to use that power in a really positive way. And one of the things we need to do is make sure other colleagues are positively taking on board what we are doing with these children, and also to be listening to any positive interventions that they can make. Okay. A few other little bits and pieces for you. I'd like to share this with you. This is what I call respond, react, or react and think. We got that a good height. And what it is I usually say on the day courses, what's the best way to deal with a situation? Should we respond or should we react? Should we react or should we stop and think about what it is? Well, actually, different situations have different answers. You know, mostly people go, oh yeah, we think about it. We respond, we don't react. Yeah, well, actually, in an emergency, if you think somebody's going to run out in front of a moving vehicle, for example, you might pull them back. That's a react. Stop and think about it. That person's going to have an accident. So this is a great thing to workshop with people with ADHD. So what you do, now, how I've got this is, these are sticky pads. They're called gecko pads, actually. And you might write a scenario. You can write it, and they're little envelopes, and you can, there you go. You put your little written scenario or a picture, what have you. You put them there. And so we've got a few of these here. And then you work with that person with ADHD. You workshop that. They say, well, someone's running out in front of a vehicle. We put that in that one. You know, somebody's just been really unkind to me on social media. Okay, let's have a think about what's the best way to react to that or respond to that. So I'm getting my react and response mixed up. But you get the general gist of this. These are fabulous. I really do like these. And it is another go-to situation for me. So again, worth having a little look at. Put that there. When I was when I first sort of started doing these kinds of interventions and working in this part of education, I used to say never settle for less than perfection, you know, and I was always striving perfection, but I was always disappointed because actually life doesn't really work like that, and we're always looking for the small improvements. And I'll tell you a little example. I was in one particular school, and we had a child who had several issues that he needed some help with, and I put in some of the most, in fact I should explain, he was a school refuser. He wasn't coming in, and so I put in some of the most over the top interventions possible. Get that boy in school, nothing else matters, we get him in school. And that's what we did, and I put all these interventions in place, and because he just wasn't coming in. I went back to the school, and about maybe a week later, a couple of weeks, and I met the child's one-to-one in the playground, and I said, oh, hi, how's he getting on? Oh, not very good, Andrew. Really? No, not at all. No. Well, how many times did he come in last week? Only 3 days. 3 days is fantastic, because before it was no days. And so, you know, we're looking for improvements. We're looking for those improvements all the time. Now, there's a quote that's been given to Michelangelo, which it's questionable whether it's him or not. The real danger lies not in aiming too high and falling short, but aiming too low and hitting the mark. I think we need to be somewhere in the middle of that. We're aiming for improvements. We're aiming for improvements all the time. Anything above that is a real benefit. Just want to talk about this as well, rights and responsibilities. Children with ADHD can be manipulative, and they can sort of say, this is my right and this is what I want, and this is because I'm entitled to this and I'm entitled to that. That's great. You have to remind them, you know, if you want the right to fair treatment, you have the responsibility to treat others fairly. I mean, this is one that I've picked up, but you can make your own based around your own situation and the pupils that you are working with. You have the right to voice your opinion. You have the responsibility to respect the opinions of others. This is the whole sort of the yin and yang of it all, that we need to produce this sort of thing to help and workshop children's abilities to have a bit of balance in their life. I do get concerned about the general ignorance of ADHD and the perception of ADHD. ADHD is, as I said at the beginning of this workshop, ADHD is not a death sentence. And actually, I'm fully of the belief, in fact, I know it to be true, that people with ADHD, if they are nurtured correctly, they can really live good, full, happy and successful lives, creative lives, and ones that meet their needs. And it's just about how we nurture that. And certainly the new Ofsted framework is contributed to that. So what I want from you is what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go through what we've looked at today, what we've looked at with impulsive behaviour, and I'd like you to come up with 5 things that you can think of to help people with ADHD help to manage their impulsive behaviours. Now, if you're working around those impulsive behaviours, you could be looking at action planning for future ways of that person's going to deal with things. You could look at respond and react and how you're going to be doing that, how you can put children in a position where they don't need to make an impulsive behaviour, so no shocks and surprises. I leave it with you. I would like you to share that with me at Andrew WSEN or andrew@peoplefirsteducation.com, and I look forward to seeing what you've got out of this. Hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to delivering the next workshop. Thank you.